Hello, friends. Welcome to Storycraft. On this channel, you will enjoy world-top stories. Let's view the video, The Doll That Whispers Secrets. The Attic Discovery. The house on Sycamore Lane had stood untouched for decades, draped in vines and silence. When the Wren family moved in, their 10-year-old daughter, Elsie, was the first to explore its forgotten corners. Her curiosity led her to the creaky staircase that spiraled up to the attic, a place her parents hadn't dared to enter yet. Dust danced like ghosts in the golden shafts of sunlight filtering through the cracked window. Cobwebs blanketed the rafters, and old furniture stood like forgotten sentinels of time. Elsie's eyes sparkled with excitement. This wasn't just an attic, it was a treasure chest of stories. Near the far wall, half hidden beneath a moth-eaten quilt, she found an old wooden chest with iron latches. With effort, she pried it open. Inside were faded photographs, brittle, letters, and nestled among them, a porcelain doll. It was eerily beautiful, glass blue eyes, rosy cheeks, and golden curls perfectly preserved. It wore a hand-stitched velvet dress and tiny black shoes. Clutched in its arms was a rusted brass key. Elsie held the doll gently. It felt cold, heavier than it looked. The moment her fingers brushed its delicate face, a strange chill ran down her spine. She shivered, but her fascination overpowered her fear. "Who were you?" she whispered aloud, as if the doll might answer. That night, Elsie placed the doll on the shelf above her bed. She didn't tell her parents. It felt like a secret just for her. As she drifted off to sleep, a soft sound stirred in the darkness. Whisper, whisper. Elsie's eyes snapped open. "Mom?" she called. No answer. She looked at the shelf. The doll sat exactly where she'd left it, its glassy eyes catching the moonlight. She told herself it was just the wind. But the next morning, the doll was lying on her pillow, its tiny hands wrapped around the brass key. Voices in the night. The brass key never left Elsie's side after that morning. She wore it on a string around her neck, hidden beneath her shirt. The doll, which she began calling Maribel, stayed on her windowsill during the day, watching over the neighborhood like a silent guardian. But each night, the whispers returned. "Elsie, come find me." They were soft at first, like wind through the trees. But each night they grew clearer, more persistent. She would wake with Maribel sitting closer to her, always moved from the windowsill, always staring. It felt like the doll was watching her sleep. One night, unable to bear it anymore, Elsie snuck into her parents' room and slipped under the covers. Her mother groggily muttered something, but neither parent woke enough to notice. The next morning, the brass key around her neck was gone. Her heart pounded as she searched under the blankets, behind pillows, and even under the bed. It was back, on her pillow, wrapped in Maribel's arms. She hid the doll in the closet that day, behind a box of board games. But when she returned from school, Maribel was back on the windowsill, staring outward. The closet was still closed. That night, the whispers came again, but this time, it wasn't just her name. It was a second voice, a child's voice. You can help me. I don't want to be here. The key, the floor. Elsie sat up, frozen. Her room felt colder. She could see her breath fogging in the air. The brass key on her neck burned against her chest. She switched on her lamp. Maribel was no longer on the windowsill. She was sitting at the foot of the bed, hands resting in her lap. "Maribel," Elsie whispered, "what do you want?" No answer. Just the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. Downstairs, something creaked. A floorboard. Then another. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through the house. Elsie leapt from bed and closed her door, pressing her back against it. The whispers stopped. Silence returned, heavy and thick. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, Elsie decided to investigate the key. She searched the attic again, this time looking for locks. The trunks, drawers, and cabinets yielded nothing. But when she stepped on a certain plank near the attic's far wall, it groaned differently. Hollow. She knelt and pressed her ear to it. Nothing. Then, holding the key, she felt a strange pull, like gravity urging her hand downward. She placed the keyhole tip against a knot in the wood. It clicked. A section of the floor lifted, just a few inches, revealing a narrow compartment. Inside lay a faded diary, a rusted locket, and a second, smaller porcelain doll with a cracked face. And beneath them all, a photograph of a little girl who looked just like Elsie. The girl in the photograph. Elsie stared at the photograph in stunned silence. The girl in the picture wore the same golden curls, the same wide-set eyes, even the same gap in her front teeth. But the photo was old, sepia-toned and fraying at the corners. It was impossible. This photo had to be from nearly a century ago, and yet the girl could have been her twin. She turned the photo over. Scribbled in delicate handwriting were the words, Annabelle Wren, 1904. Wren, her last name. The attic suddenly felt much colder. With trembling hands, Elsie opened the diary. The cover was cracked leather, and inside were pages filled with careful script. As she turned through them, she read entries that spoke of loneliness, fear, and a doll named Maribel. Mama says the voices aren't real, but Maribel hears them too. She tells me secrets at night. She says the whispers are from the other girl. The key is not just for hiding, it's for remembering. They said Annabelle ran away, but I'm still here, still waiting, still whispering. Elsie. Closed the diary, heart racing. Had Annabelle been locked away, forgotten? Was she still here? She looked at the smaller porcelain doll from the compartment, cracked and dirt-smudged. Its eyes were black, soulless. She left it where it lay and crept downstairs, clutching the photograph. Her parents were in the kitchen. She dropped the photo onto the table. "Do you know her?" she asked. Her father looked confused. Her mother went pale. "Where did you get that?" Her mother whispered. "In the attic," Elsie said. "The floor opened. There was a diary and a doll." Her mother sat down slowly. "My great-grandmother's name was Annabelle. I was told she vanished when she was 10. No one knew what happened to her. They said she walked out into the woods one night and never came back. Elsie's voice was barely audible. She didn't vanish. She was here, in this house. Her mother reached for the diary, flipping through it with shaking fingers. I've never seen this before. That night, Elsie couldn't sleep. The whispers returned, clearer than ever. Find her. She's not gone. The other girl must be free. Elsie sat up, clutching the brass key. She followed the sound of the whispers, which led her not to the attic, but to the basement, a place she never entered alone. With a flashlight in one hand and the key in the other, she crept down the narrow stairs. The air was thick with mildew and age. At the far end of the basement was an old wall cabinet, locked. Elsie raised the key. It fit perfectly. With a click, the door opened. Inside was a dusty mirror, small, round and framed in iron vines. As she looked into it, her reflection shimmered and changed. The girl staring back wasn't her. It was Annabelle. Same eyes, same curls, but older clothes, paler skin, and her lips were moving, though no sound came. Behind Elsie, Maribel stood silently, her porcelain face unreadable. The mirror vibrated faintly. Then Annabelle whispered, from behind the glass, "Help me come home." Buried truth beneath the floorboards. Elsie didn't scream. She couldn't. Her voice caught in her throat as the image of Annabelle stared back at her through the mirror. Her mouth moved again, slower this time, more deliberate. "I'm still here." Then the reflection vanished. Only Elsie's terrified face remained. She stumbled back from the cabinet, nearly dropping the key. Maribel was still on the floor behind her, standing now, upright, no longer leaning against anything, as if she had walked there on her own. Elsie bolted upstairs, heart pounding like a drum. She couldn't sleep, couldn't think. But by morning, determination replaced fear. Annabelle needed her help. She returned to the attic and opened the hidden compartment again. The diary, the photograph, the cracked doll. She studied them like clues in a mystery. One passage in the diary stood out. Beneath the parlor, under the cross-marked plank, she waits. Elsie had never seen a marked floorboard downstairs, but the parlor, the large room with the fireplace and the old rug, hadn't been explored fully. She waited until her parents went out for groceries, then rolled up the carpet. And there it was, a single wooden plank with a faded red X carved into it. She pressed on it. It didn't budge. Then she remembered the brass key. She slid it into a small hole near the edge of the plank, barely visible. It clicked. The floor creaked open, revealing a hidden space just large enough for a box. Inside was a rotting wooden crate sealed with rusted nails. She pried it open with a fire poker, heart thundering. What she found wasn't treasure. It was tragedy. A tiny skeleton lay wrapped in what remained of a velvet dress. Next to it, another porcelain doll, identical to Maribel. Elsie sank to her knees. Tears filled her eyes. This was Annabelle's resting place, forgotten, buried, and erased from the family's history. She placed the diary and photograph beside the bones, and Maribel, too, gently, reverently. Then she whispered, You're not alone anymore. For a moment, the air felt still. Then, a gust of wind blew through the room, though no windows were open. The floorboard lifted slightly, then slowly closed by itself. Elsie felt warmth, a soft hum in the air, a peace she hadn't known since the whispers began. That night, there were no voices, and Maribel was gone from her shelf. The final whisper. Days passed, then weeks. The house on Sycamore Lane was quiet again. The whispers were gone. The doll never returned to Elsie's shelf, and the brass key no longer fit into anything. But something had changed. Elsie no longer feared the attic. She visited it often, sitting by the open window, reading aloud from Annabelle's diary. Her parents didn't ask about the photo again, but her mother sometimes stared at Elsie longer than usual, like she was trying to remember something that had been lost in time. One rainy afternoon, Elsie found a letter slipped under her bedroom. There was no name, only the words, "You remembered me, thank you." She ran to the attic, hoping to find a sign, but the compartment was sealed. The knot in the floor had vanished, as if it had never existed. That night, as she drifted into sleep, she heard one last whisper. Not frightening, not desperate, just soft. "I'm free now." And then, nothing. The silence at last felt like peace. The doll that once whispered secrets would never speak again. But its story, through Elsie, would never be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel Storycraft for more interesting videos.